In this video today, we're going to talk about 3 mistakes that I see all the time with people contacting me for English lessons or just among my students already, and that I really want you to try not to make. Mistake number 1 is actually trying to go too fast. Learning English is a long process. You can't learn English in a few days, in a few weeks. It actually takes time. So, except if your English level is already pretty high, then you have to take the time. Usually when you are in a rush is actually the context. Like you have your IFI or your instrument rating to actually do, and then you need to go super fast to make sure that you have your FCL test before your instrument rating. The other option is that you have a recruitment soon or a job interview, and then you need to improve your English very quickly so that you feel comfortable with the job interview. And the last option is generally when I have people who are just in a hurry for being in a hurry. They just like doing things very quickly and always on an intensive way. Neither of these situations are actually good conditions to learn English. Obviously, sometimes you don't have choice, which I totally understand. So you need to focus on what are your priorities. Like sometimes I get questions about how to get from a 4 to a 5 in like 1 month. Well, it depends how far you are from the level 5. So analyzing and checking out what actually you need to do to get to your objective. Try to know a bit more on what is the next step and how you can reach your objective and for how long. Being fast is only possible if your English level is already sufficient and you kind of need adjustments, or you need to improve only a few things to get to your objective. But if your level is pretty low and you're aiming for a level 5, to be honest, it's not gonna happen in a few weeks. It will happen in a few months. And sometimes it can be a year or 2, depending on how low your level is and how much time you have to improve. Mistake number 2 is that you improve through passive learning only. What I mean by passive learning, being passive means that you do things where you actually do not produce English. So I'm talking about reading, watching movies and series, listening to podcasts, grammar books, focusing on list of vocabulary like PDF and learning the list without any context. All of this is actually necessary, but it should be complemented with active learning. Active learning is all the interaction part, is actually speaking. And generally that's the part that is the hardest to get, and in particular in aviation context. So it's very important to find ways to practice both active and passive, and actually the amount of active should be higher than the passive one. Mistake number 3 is that you don't organize your improvement, your work around English through or using the ICAO skills, and you just focus on English in general. What I generally see is that you will download an app, Duolingo for example, watch BBC News, and never actually really focus on what skills you need to improve in order to get to the level that you want to reach following the ICAO skills. You also stay on an academic approach, really the way that you've learned English at school, but it's actually not really the English we expect on an FCL test or even in a cockpit. What we aim for when we are improving aviation English is a solid and safe type of English. So it's not about just having a level written on your certificate, it's about being safe. If your aim is just to get to a 5, to kind of get rid of this and just have a certificate and be able to get a job, you're wrong, you're very wrong. And I will go even further. I would say that for me, you're not a safe pilot. Having this notion of safety includes having a safe, very solid English so that you can communicate in any situation without freaking out and without being misunderstood, because misunderstanding and communication issues is the number one reason for most crashes. Of course, you have technical issues, you have context, you have human factor and all that kind of stuff, but actually language and communication is a human factor. But you should not put aside English because you don't like it or because you feel like you're bad at English. If you want to become a professional pilot, then you have no choice, and you need to really be aware of the impact of English on your life and the life of the people who are on your plane. Never focus just on the exam. I mentioned ICAO skills and that you should focus on ICAO skills, but it's only to guide you. Actually, the ICAO skills are just a reflection of what happens in a cockpit, and you will need a good pronunciation. You need to have correct structures when you explain what's happening in a non-routine event or when you have an emergency situation. You need to have sufficient vocabulary to be able to explain what's happening or to be able to describe what's around you. And you also need to be fluent enough so that you can interact in an effective way, because you can have a lot of people on the radio, and then if you take a really long time to explain, other people can't talk on the radio as well, and they might have also an issue. So it's all about being efficient, it's all about reducing the stress for you and being safe on board. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next video, and until then, you can still watch my latest one. Have a nice day.